Hello and welcome to this week's Night program, the program which if you've been tuning on to us regularly, you'll know is on live transmission and can only work with the participation of you, the viewers, when you phone in of our participants here today. In view of the forthcoming Advertising Awards of Zimbabwe held due to be held on the 20th of February, our program is going to be dealing specifically with advertising, the different facets of advertising in this field, what it does in society. Does it create an imagery from the culture, or does it give us an imagery of what we're supposed to be doing? So to discuss all this, we're going to be talking to participants of this very important field, and because there's sort of like a tongue-twisting little association, I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves. We'll start off with you.
Good evening, Simone. Good evening, viewers. My name is Mike Rook. I'm chairman of ADMAR, which is the Advertising Media Association.
Can you tell me a little more about your association?
Okay, Simone, I'll give you the objects of the association. To be accurate, I'll read them. To maintain the highest possible standard of ethics in all advertising media operating in Zimbabwe, to promote and protect the interests of the advertising media, and to represent and give effect to the opinions of the members of the association on all questions affecting the advertising media in Zimbabwe, to secure unity and cooperation in dealing with organised bodies and individuals on matters affecting all or any of its members, to cooperate with any association, federation, institution, local authority or other personal persons in securing the furtherance of the objects of the association and the interests of its members, to support the maintenance of fair and reasonable advertisement charges by members, to prevent persons using media for advertising immoral or other matter which, in the opinion of the association, is against the public interest, to grant recognition to practitioners in advertising placing business in Zimbabwe, and to establish and make changes to the requirements for such recognition as the association may from time to time decide, to make rules governing members in their relationship with recognised practitioners in advertising in respect of the placing and publication of advertisements, the settlement of accounts by practitioners in advertising, and any other matters affecting members and practitioners in advertising, to promote, support or oppose, as may be deemed most expedient, any legislation or other measures affecting the interests of any or all branches of the advertising industry, and finally, to do such other lawful things as may appear to be in the interests of the members of the association. Now, in fact, the membership of the association consists of radio broadcasting, television broadcasting, cinema, newspapers, magazines and periodicals published in Zimbabwe, outdoor and direct mail, as may be decided upon by the Executive Committee. On the Executive Committee, the representation is as follows. We have one from radio, one from television, one from newspapers, two from magazines and periodicals, one from cinema, and one from direct mail. There is a vacancy for a representative from outdoor advertising, but at the present time we have no representative from that area. We also have a committee, which is a subcommittee of the Executive Committee, called the Advertising Standards Authority, ASA. That's comprised of media members, AAPA members, that's the Association of Accredited Practitioners in Advertising, representing the advertising agencies, and AAZ members, advertising, the advertisers themselves. And the function of the Advertising Standards Authority of ADMAR is to administer the advertising bylaws of the Advertising Media Association and to review, and if necessary resolve, matters of dispute on the interpretation of the Code of Standards between individual members of the Advertising Media Association and individual advertisers anywhere and or advertising practitioners. So basically that's...
Thank you for reading out your constitution to us. I think we're going to turn now to Tommy Thompson. Can you tell us what you do?
I haven't brought my constitution with me, but
with so much time
I'm here wearing two hats. The first hat is I'm employed by an advertising agency, and I'm vice chairman of the Advertising Agencies Association. But my main reason for being here this evening is that I'm chairman of the Advertising Awards of Zimbabwe, i.e. the big function is going to take place on the 28th of this month. So basically that's my background and why I'm here this evening.
Advertising Association of Zimbabwe, what does that do? What's
the
your
Advertising
aims?
Association of Zimbabwe?
Yes.
It's the Advertising Awards Association
I see.
of Zimbabwe. What we have done this year, we are getting the whole industry to stage this event whereby all the advertising that the advertising agencies feel is good advertising are entered for the awards. We get imported judges coming in, and these judges will sit there with our local creative directors and select which are the winners in each of 45 categories of advertising. And of course, this is going to take place at the Tobacco Floors in Willowville on the 28th, as I said, and we're anticipating anything between 1,000 and 1,500 people attending. And it's a formal occasion, and we've got dinner laid on, so it's quite an ordeal to organize this and stage it and put it on, and it costs a lot of money as well.
Sure does. We'll talk about the funding a little later on. Turning to Joan Ross, can you tell me a little more about yourself and what you actually do specifically in the advertising field?
Right, yes, my name is Joanne Ross, and I represent the advertisers. Now, the advertisers spend a lot of money in Zimbabwe, both on television, radio, press, magazines, and it amounts to, in fact, $10 million Zimbabwe a year. So it's a very, very big industry. It employs a lot of people, and I am here representing the advertisers, those who spend money, and I'm also immediate past chairman of the Advertising Awards, which we did last year.
Okay, thank you, John. Auntie Sada, tell us a little about yourself. I know you're not your father, you like.
Well, yes, I'm an advertiser. I'm marketing director of one of the manufacturing companies in Zimbabwe. As such, I'm also a member of the AAZ, which, as has been mentioned, is the body which represents advertisers specifically to protect the interests of advertisers against the evil and vicious media barons like Mike, and specifically to resist their totally unreasonable media increases every year. And in addition to that, I have the dubious distinction of having organized 3 of the previous advertising awards, so some people thought I might have some input today.
The failures, you mean?
No,
No.
some of this is 6 of them.
Okay, Chaz, thank you so much.
Evening, Simona. My name is Chaz Maviani Davis, and I'm a creative director with a local advertising agency. I'm also a filmmaker and a controversialist, and I think that was my reason for being brought here to talk about creativity in advertising, what it needs, what it does, and where it's going.
I think I'll turn my next question to you. What sort of images are you trying to create? And where do you get your essence from? Is it international? Is it from the Zimbabwean ambience? Where do you get your imagery to create your adverts from?
Basically, I mean, advertising is basically to sell a client's products or services, and therefore we look around us and understand our environment and try and do some research to see what people need, and from that, using the sort of, if you want to say, artistic marketing backgrounds that we all use, we put an advertising campaign or ad, just a small ad together. Our obvious inspiration comes from the things that happen around us, our culture, our politics, our situation, economic situation, various things like that. But it's so varied. I mean, advertising a pen to advertising ISAP is 2 big things. So that's how wide the margin is.
But as culture, I think to some extent, what's reflected in the advertising world and the media is very much drawn to Western culture. To what extent can you try to be development-oriented, lead, as opposed to following some cultural fads? Maybe, Tommy, you'd like to answer?
Yes, I think that, I think advertising creates trends, creates needs, it creates wants for a better life. And I think there's a tremendous influence from overseas in advertising. But as Chaz said, we have got to take the overseas way and turn it into sort of traditional and cultural ways here, because to talk in a European way in Zimbabwe is acceptable, but it's not as good as talking to suit our own markets out there. So
To what extent have you done that? I mean, you say you don't want to emulate so much the Western ways of Western concept of what's good and what's right, but to what extent have you broken away from that? Because what we normally see is very much Western orientated.
Well, I think you've got to take that all markets, well, the whole population is broken down into segments. And we look at the segments and say what is going to communicate, because advertising is communication, basically. So we say what's going to communicate with these segments, and we try and pick a sphere or lay down parameters of the creativity There's your parameters. You can be as creative as you want within these parameters. So say, for instance, we're speaking to the rural people, and we'll find out what communicates with them. We'll even do research to make sure that our creative idea is going to communicate to them and we've understood with them. So then these are the areas we go to. If we're appealing to a very sophisticated urban audience, then of course our whole approach and the parameters vary to suit that audience.
So what you're trying to say in essence is that perhaps Mike would like to assume this. What you're trying to say then is that you follow up from people's cultural expectations, people's perceptions about themselves.
And their aspirations.
And their aspirations. But you don't necessarily create some other imagery. Mike?
From a media point of view, what the media looks at, each media has a target audience, and indeed does and spends a lot of money on researching who the target audience is and where it is, what its ad spend is. And you know, from the media point of view, the advertising that's put into that specific media should be directed towards the readership that media has. The mass media obviously have a different readership from perhaps technical magazines and specialist magazines, and so you know, this is what we consider as a media, who the target audience is, and I would think that the advertising agency and the advertiser would be advised by that media who their target audience is, and what sort of disposable income they might have, and then design their advertising in that media to that target audience.
Thank you. Joanne, I think recently women's organizations have slated the way women are projected in adverts. The sexist symbol of a woman, and the woman who's tireless and cleans the house all day and is a great mother and a wife to no matter how long she's been working for. I mean, some negative perhaps perceptions about women. To what extent, as a woman in the field, do you try to change this imagery that's constantly being projected in our media? If you don't disagree with it or disagree with it.
We don't actually do anything to change that at all. It would appear that people are used, people, males, females, they're all used in advertising to project to a specific market. And where you see females, glamorous females being used, they're normally used in flashy cars and areas like that. And that appeals to the men who buy the cars. So it's really the advertisers, the people there, the people who view advertising and who react to advertising, that the ones that can in fact affect this. But this is what the people like.
But when operating from in the context of a developing nation, and to what extent do you feel that you should be perhaps responsible and responsive to the million that you're operating? It's like in Europe, or it's not like America, where perhaps people don't need perhaps the assistance of such powerful organs like yourself. To what extent can you not be much more, progressive?
Right, well, you were talking about culture earlier on. Last year's awards were 3 of the main winning awards were cultural adverts showing the cultural society. In fact, one of the criticisms we've had from the agencies that there was too much cultural, that's the local culture as opposed to the Western culture. There was far too much local culture in it, and it all depends on a lot depends on the judges that we invite. This judge came from America, and he was one of the biggest advertising moguls in the States and responsible for one of the biggest labels in the United States. But his choice of winning adverts was in fact all our local ones. If you recall, there was if I can mention them, there were the Olivine advert with the people in the tribal trust lands using the Olivine tins for musical instruments. The other one was Perfection Soap for the Big Mama, who it was a very humorous, a very human advert. And this is one of the things that the judge said. He wants adverts to appeal to people and to show the human interest. And